when folks exercise with oxygen, it caused an anti-inflammatory effect inside these capillaries, and it reopened them so that they could get normal blood flow back. And he had elderly folks do just a few sessions of it, and he had them come back weeks later, and those capillaries were still open. So it was like an endurable improvement. And so that was kind of the birth of Ewot, which was this kind of anti-aging ability to reestablish blood flow in all of us, and then all of our cells can get the energy that they need.
Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who's out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode. Hey, welcome to The Exploding Human. My name is Bob Nickman. My guest today is Brad Pitzele, and we're going to be talking about something called exercise with oxygen therapy. Brad has an amazing story. He was suffering from a lot of autoimmune conditions and chronic illnesses, and nothing seemed to be helping him. In fact, some of the pharmaceuticals he was prescribed were increasing his risk of cancer, which he eventually did get cancer, and began to do some research after hyperbaric oxygen was recommended to him, and he discovered another protocol which involved exercise with oxygen. And we're going to be talking about how that protocol has gotten him to the place today where his symptoms are almost non-existent. Brain fog is cleared up. He has great energy. We're going to be talking about the role of oxygen in healing, what Ewot actually is and how it works, and how Ewot can also be used in conjunction with red light therapy. This is Brad Pitzele. Brad, good morning. I'm so glad that you're here. I've been looking forward to this since I got your information.
Thank you for having me, Bob.
What a story. So, when I was reading about all these issues that you had, and them, of course, not being solved by conventional treatments and that path. So let's start with some of the things that you were going through. I guess it started with some type of arthritis. It was the first diagnosis, and then it went to cancer. I mean, tell us what happened. How old were you when this happened?
Yeah, actually, my medical stuff probably started in like second grade. I got psoriasis, which is an autoimmune condition in the skin, and had that most of my life, but it was mild. And then I would have other weird medical maladies kind of come and go. I remember a few of them in high school, and go to the doctor. They'd give you like a diagnosis, but there was nothing to do. And then it might go away a week or a month later. Same thing in college. But for the most part, I felt like I was healthy until I guess around 2010 or 11. I started to develop arthritis in my hands, and I went to the doctor, and they referred to it as psoriatic arthritis. So it's an autoimmune arthritis you get when you have psoriasis. That's what the psoriatic means. It's like psoriasis arthritis, very similar to rheumatoid arthritis. And so they put me on all the traditional medicines, and they would help. Well, several of them didn't do anything, and then they got to the really powerful stuff. And the powerful stuff was helping. It would help for about 6 months, and then it would like wear off. And then I was even in a worse place than when I started it. And then they would double the dose, and that would work for another 6 months. And then that would wear off, and then they'd rotate to another drug. And I was on that Ferris wheel until I developed melanoma. So that would have been, I want to say 2013 or 14. So one of the side effects of the medicines I was taking was an increased risk of cancer, and particularly melanoma. So obviously I was really concerned. I had a young family at the time. I had gotten worse and worse at this point. And so after I had my melanoma treated, I went to my rheumatologist and just said like, hey, what do we do here? I'm kind of feel like I'm in a bind. If I don't take the medicines, I'm going to die a painful death of these autoimmune conditions. And if I do take the medicines, I could die of cancer. And he gave me a really unsatisfactory answer. It was something like, well, let's just try another medicine. And it was a medicine from the same class, the same risks. And it was kind of like, maybe your body won't react to this one. I'm like, geez, that sounds like a little bit of Russian roulette. Like, do I pull the trigger again and hope?
Thank you, doctor, for the maybe.
Well, he was still practicing. So anyhow, he, it was like, gosh, this is too much for me. I can't do this. So I thought to myself, well, neither one of these paths seems really good. There has to be a third path. And that kind of started me out on trying to take better control of my health and research and figure out what could I do to improve my health and get better. And I tried a lot. I tried everything. I tried all sorts of weird things. I tried dietary changes. I tried all sorts of modalities, all sorts of supplements, just so many things. I mean, my family used to laugh at me, the disgusting things I would drink or eat, the crazy diets, the different modalities I would do. Meanwhile, I was getting worse and worse. And I really hit probably my low spot in 2015 and 16. It'd gotten so bad that the bottoms of my feet felt like they'd been beaten by meat hammers. Every step was excruciating. I remember going back to my rheumatologist and saying, hey, the backs of my legs are like stiff. Like I just got done running 3 or 4 marathons. The bottom of my feet hurt. I'm like, is this related to the arthritis? And he kind of looked at me and was like, no. And I was like, of course it is. It's definitely related. But he didn't know about it. So it was like forced me further and further into this research. I would get out of bed to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, and I'd have to put shoes on, to these special shoes that to walk from my bed to the toilet. They hurt that bad. It just was not possible to walk without shoes. It was really bad. I was walking like a 90-year-old man. I was really scared. You have a young family and I was a sole breadwinner. And I was like, what happens to this family if I can't, make a living? Where do we live? How do we live? What happens? Eventually I ended up at a naturopathic doctor, an osteopath actually. And he ended up recommending that I needed to start doing oxygen. He said, you're like in really bad shape. We tried a bunch of things with him that didn't work. And he tried all of his big guns. And he said, my last kind of resort for you you need to do oxygen. And you either need to do hyperbaric oxygen or you need to do exercise with oxygen therapy, Ewot, EWOT, which I'd never heard of. So I was like, I'm not doing that thing I've never heard of. I'm going to go do the hyperbaric. And so I went home and researched it, and it was somewhere between $50,000 and $75,000 for the course of treatments that was recommended for me. It involved going to a doctor's office, getting in a tube, waiting for that tube to be pressurized, spending 90 minutes at that pressure, depressurizing, etc. So it was probably going to be a 2.5-3 hour ordeal each time. And I was supposed to do it 7 days a week for, I can't remember if it was like 8 or more weeks. And I knew I was already fighting for my job. I had terrible brain fog, nerve pain, all the other pains. So many things. I was like faking it at work to get by. And I was like, there's just no way I can do that. That's not even reasonable. So I begrudgingly looked at this exercise with oxygen therapy. And that was kind of lucky for me, I guess.
Yeah, I've never heard of it until I saw that on your bio. I've heard of hyperbaric oxygen. It's come up in my podcast a few times, particularly to help with traumatic brain injury. That's one of the things. Is it similar to that, plus you're exercising in between treatments, or tell me what it is, because this is the first time I've ever been able to talk about it. It's never come up. Yeah,
it's very similar, and it has most of the same benefits as hyperbaric. And in fact, most folks who've done both will say that it's much more dramatic and much more apparent, the benefits. What you simply do is you do like 15 minutes of cardio while you have a mask on that you're breathing near pure oxygen. Because your body is so tuned in when you're exercising to bring in more oxygen, you're breathing deeper and heavier, your heart's beating faster, your blood vessels are dilating. All these physiological changes are your body's way of enabling it to bring in more oxygen. And so you're kind of hijacking all of those physiological differences to bring in a massive amount of oxygen in a short period of time. So I mentioned spending 90 minutes in a hard shell hyperbaric chamber. You can get the same amount of oxygen in this 15-minute session. So it's also more affordable and more practical for that reason. And I think the most important thing is it's more practical, because the benefits from any kind of oxygen therapy like this is like being able to do it consistently over time. And none of us have 2 or 3 hours on a regular basis. Like you could do that heroically. Like if the doctor told you to go do that for 4 weeks, you might be able to do it for 4 or 6 weeks. It'd probably be tough to do it ongoing beyond that is just not realistic for most folks. But 15 minutes is realistic for just about everybody.
You're doing it in someone's office, or can you do it at home with like a tank and an oxygen mask? How does it, I'm trying to picture it in my head. Like, where were you? And
yeah, so when I set out to look at Ewot, there were a few providers that you could buy a system for your home. They were really highly priced. You know, they were selling them for $15,000, $25,000. When I was reading their websites, I didn't have a high degree of trust in those providers at the time, because it seemed like a lot of marketing hyperbole. And I just spent so much time, effort, and money already trying to get better, and nothing was working. So I just couldn't see myself plunking down that kind of money for an experiment. So I ended up building my own. And what an Ewot system looks like is it starts with a device called an oxygen concentrator, which is something you simply plug into the wall, and it purifies the oxygen in your room. At sea level, there's about 21% oxygen in the air, and it takes that and purifies it up to 93%, which is a medical grade oxygen. The challenge with the device is, you know, they can produce 5 or 10 liters of oxygen in a minute. And when you're exercising, you can easily use 50 or 60 liters in a minute. So they don't produce near enough oxygen. So what we do is we take that device and we fill a large reservoir that's like 1,000 liters. So, and ours is like 6 feet wide, 5.5 feet tall. And you fill this thing with 1,000 liters of oxygen. And then it has a hose coming off it to a mask. And you just put the mask on and jump on your preferred piece of cardio equipment, or do some other sort of exercise to get your heart rate up. And that's all it requires.
Technology wise, how did you even figure out how to do that? You sort of read up. Are you like in that kind of field anyway?
I always joke that I'm a recovering engineer. So I did get a mechanical engineering degree. And I spent my first decade of my career doing engineering work. So I have that kind of mind. I was joking, I'm recovering, because I prefer to solve problems with humans versus inanimate objects. Why I got out of engineering? Definitely. I just kind of dove in and learned what it took. When I made my own, it was just for me. And I started doing it in 2016 when the doctor recommended it. And in 2017, I went back for a checkup. And I was doing considerably better. And he noticed, and he asked me, he said, "Hey, are you doing the oxygen? Is that what's getting you better?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." And he's like, "Well, who do you use so I can tell my other patients?" And I said, "I didn't use anyone, doc. I just kind of made my own." And he looked at me like shocked, like I had a horn growing out of my head. And he took a second and then goes, "Would you consider making them for my patients?" And that was kind of the birth of our company. You know, it took me about a year to kind of think it through and figure out how I would do it at scale, and build out a supply chain and design the product. And so we launched in 2018.
It's amazing. I see. This happens all the time with, the wounded become the healers, kind of thing. It's just people have a need for themselves, and it works, and they figure it out, and then they can disseminate the information, or an actual product, in your case, to other people. A little desperation goes a long way for invention.
Necessity is the mother of invention, as they say.
I mean, it's really extraordinary. So when you started doing it, how quickly and what happened in terms of improvement? When did you start to notice, oh, this is actually doing something? I feel better. There's less pain in my feet. The brain fog's clearing up. I'm sure that took a little bit of time, because that's the thing about experimenting with different modalities, is you don't know what the length of time is that it's going to start working or not working. It's like, do I give up now? Do I give it another month? Do I take this supplement for a year? Do I quit after 2 weeks. That's the tricky part about that stuff, because you're basically a test tube, and you don't
Yeah.
you don't know. So
No.
So was there a quick improvement?
I'm probably not the best use case. I fall on the longer end of the spectrum. We do have folks who use it in like first session, and it's not insignificant. First session, they notice big improvements. Some folks, it takes weeks. I was on what I would call the long end. It took me about 3 months to notice. Oxygen is incredibly anti-inflammatory. There's a lot of research on this, which shows anywhere in your body you have inflammation, you also have low oxygen status there. And if you have low oxygen status, it creates inflammation. So they're kind of one and the same. I was so inflamed. I kind of describe it like pulling the drain in a bathtub. You pull the drain and you don't notice the water going down. It takes a significant amount of time until you look back and go, oh yeah, it's gone down 6 inches, sort of thing. And that was kind of me. And it took me 3 months. I haven't heard of anyone taking as long as I have. But, I've heard of, folks, I say anywhere from immediate to a few weeks to it can take up to 3 months is what I tell folks to really start noticing something. But for me, even at 3 months, it wasn't super noticeable at first. I was so sick. I had so many symptoms. I was in such a bad way. And throughout this course, I got diagnosed with Lyme disease. And if you know anything about Lyme disease, it's considered the great imitator. And that's these new and different and disappearing and reappearing symptoms. And at 3 months, it finally occurred to me. I'm like, oh gosh, these numbers aren't exact, but it was kind of like, oh gosh, I used to have 67 symptoms and now I only have 42, sort of thing. Like you're always focused on the 42 you have at the moment, not thinking about the handful that have dropped off. But that's when I started noticing it. The flip side was also true, which is I continued to notice incremental benefits into my third year, which is, I always think is pretty profound, because let's just say you weren't exercising and you started an exercise regimen. If you did the same thing every week in, by month 3, you'd think you'd kind of plateau and like, this is all I'm going to get out of it. So to be, in year 3 and be noticing like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling better here and I've got better fitness there. And wow, I didn't even realize this was an issue, and, sort of thing was pretty amazing.
What happens in the body is that the increased oxygen concentration gets rid of inflammation, which is the cause of the autoimmune disease, or at least it lessens the symptoms of these things. Is that the idea?
That's one of the benefits of oxygen. I think every cell in your body needs energy. It needs energy. Your liver needs energy to do what a liver does. Your brain needs energy to do what your brain does, your skin, etc. And the gating factor to how much energy you produce is how much oxygen your cells can take in. It's the oxygen that helps us convert that into usable energy. And so when you do it, it's very anti-inflammatory. It provides more energy to allow the cells in the body to heal quicker. Every cell, including your immune system, can work more efficiently and more effectively. So it strengthens the immune system. It's also anti-cancer. So I've never had a reoccurrence of melanoma, which is very high reoccurrence rate with melanoma. And I had a few other precancers, and I just haven't had any cancerous issues since I started this. It also is very detoxifying. So for your body to break down and get stuff out, it uses oxygen to oxidate these toxins into smaller components that your elimination organs can get out of your body. It helps in all of these different places, and that's kind of the cool thing about it, is it's got multiple benefits that occur all at the same sort of time.
I'm wondering, are there people that use this that don't have these medical situations? Because obviously, exercise is super beneficial. And the idea of increased oxygen through exercise, I never really understood about the inflammation part of it. I never really understood why it was healthy for me. I just know that it is. I never went into beyond that. Like, oh yeah, I feel better when I exercise.
Yep.
So are there people that use this device that don't have anything? They just, maybe they're athletes, probably would be the first group I would think that would gravitate toward it.
Yeah, our customer group is probably, there's like 3 of them. One is people with a variety of chronic health conditions, and it's everything from autoimmune, Lyme, long COVID, cancer, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, you mentioned CTE, stroke, so all sorts of things that helps with healing. There's another group that's the athletes. It helps incredibly with athletic performance. It increases your VO2 max, which is like the prime metric of endurance performance. It helps with building muscle. It helps with athletic recovery. And so your body can get back to it more. And when you're doing exercise with oxygen, actually the exercise feels easier. The way I describe it is, let's say today you were running on a treadmill at 5 miles an hour and that was what you did. And then you put the oxygen mask on, you'd be like, it doesn't feel like I'm getting a workout quite at 5. I need to crank it up to 5.5. And then in a few weeks, you'd be up to 6 and then 6.5 sort of thing. And that happens for a while. So the second group is athletes. And the third one is actually just like biohackers and folks trying to maintain their wellness. It's also anti-aging. What happens as we age is there's this term now in the media called inflammaging, as if we're all supposed to get more and more inflamed as we age. And that inflammation is all over our bodies. But where it's most detrimental is inside of our capillaries, because our capillaries are the thinnest parts of our circulatory system. They're thinner than a human hair. And so when you start getting inflammation inside of them, they can actually swell shut. So now you've got this capillary that swells shut, and now all the cells downstream are no longer getting oxygen. The red blood cells can't get through. And so the cells switch from aerobic respiration, which is making energy with oxygen, to anaerobic respiration, which is making energy without it. And that creates a variety of problems in our body. Number one, anaerobic respiration creates all this lactic acid and metabolic waste. That's the reason why if you work out really hard, your muscles are sore. It's because you worked out to the level where you couldn't produce enough, you couldn't bring in enough oxygen. And so you went anaerobic and you produced all this lactic acid. The other problem with it is anaerobic respiration is incredibly inefficient. Like, you can only produce about 5% of the energy you can as aerobic respiration. The cells kind of go into this life support mode where they're just doing essential functions. All this metabolic waste that's being developed, it doesn't have time to take the trash out, so it's building up inside the cell walls. All of this happens as we age through inflammaging, and as a matter of fact, I think the figures every year past 25, we lose about 1% of our body's ability to utilize the oxygen. The way Ewot was discovered was in the 1960s and 70s. There was this gentleman named Van Arden, very prolific inventor. He was involved in the commercialization of CRT TVs in the 1930s, and he invented the scanning electron microscope. And so in the 60s and 70s, he turned his interest to oxygen and how it could help with cancer. And particularly, he was looking at exercise with oxygen. And what he found was when folks exercise with oxygen, it caused an anti-inflammatory effect inside these capillaries, and it reopened them so that they could get normal blood flow back. And he had elderly folks do just a few sessions of it, and he had them come back weeks later, and those capillaries were still open. So it was like an endurable improvement. And so that was kind of the birth of Ewot, which was this kind of anti-aging ability to reestablish blood flow in all of us, and then all of our cells can get the energy that they need.
There's a lot of talk now about water fasting, autophagy, creating that, and that sort of has a similar effect, it sounds like. Is there some sort of correlation with oxygen when you do that, or is it another process?
Yes and no. I think really at the heart of a lot of this is mitochondrial health. So mitochondria are like the little power plants in our cells. And, if you go, you look at cutting edge research like cancer, they're starting to view it as a metabolic disease of the mitochondria, or Alzheimer's. They notice that there's metabolic changes in the mitochondria. When you're fasting, obviously the body starts to consume all of these kind of zombie cells and dead products inside of our body. And that helps kind of create renewal as well. We come at renewal a little bit from a different perspective, which is if your cells are getting the oxygen they need, first off, they have the energy to do what they need to do, but it also creates what we call mitochondria biogenesis, meaning your cells start making new youthful mitochondria, which also helps. So in the autophagy, we're killing off the old cells. So the net result is the age of our cells has generally gone down, right? And in this, we are actually building up new mitochondria within our cells. And so the age of the mitochondria inside the cells we have is more at a more youthful state.
I like to eat too much to do a water fast.
It tastes better. You're right.
Yeah. I'm hungry. So how are you symptom wise these days? You've been doing this how long now? Like
almost a decade.
10 years. Okay. So 10 years, almost 10 years. What's going on with your symptoms, and where are you health wise? If unless that's too personal, but I don't think.
No, I don't mind sharing. Yeah. I don't think you ever get rid of Lyme disease. I think you get it, you kind of have it for life. It's a very intelligent bacteria that knows how to hide inside your body, hide from your immune system, and can kind of persist no matter what you do. You can get it down, but you can't get it out, so to speak. It's always kind of waiting in the shadows for you to have, some sort of traumatic event in your life or something that'll pull your immune system down. For me, I call myself 98 or 99% better. I don't really have any symptoms. About a couple times a year, it'll be rainy out and I'll notice like my joints are a couple joints might be a little stiff. And then I'll have PTSD. And then I'll realize 4 hours later that's gone away. And it was like, it was a 1 on the pain scale sort of thing. It was barely noticeable. And I'm like, just relax. That's
yeah, no, I could. Yeah, it would scare me too. I'd be like, oh no, shit, it's back.
Yeah, exactly right. My energy was so bad when I started this. It was like I said, I was like faking it to get through work, and I just don't have any energy problems anymore. It's kind of crazy to me. Like at one point, I was running this company, working a full-time job, and I was my children's assistant wrestling coach. And all the other. I was like. And I thought about, this is probably 2 or 3 years ago. And I just sat back and I thought about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, remember when you were like hiding in your office at work and hoping you didn't have to go to a meeting so people could see what bad shape you were in? It really can be quite a profound difference.
I was very impressed with the fact that you said you had brain fog and then you invented something. Because I know when I'm foggy in my brain, I don't even want to do anything.
Brain fog is caused by low oxygenation of the brain. And as I told you, low oxygenation causes inflammation. So it's a combination of not having enough energy and also fighting the inflammation. Once you start doing the oxygen, of course, that quickly can go away, which is amazing. That's some of the first things folks tell me all the time is like, man, I did it the first time and like my brain fog was gone for the rest of that day sort of thing. And they were kind of shocked by it.
This is like brand new to me. I've never heard of this.
No one has. It's the kind of that, and that was kind of our goal is could we make a company that can make this affordable for folks who are dealing with chronic health conditions or who want to improve their health, but also bring information forward, because when I was learning about Ewot, there was no information out there. So we kind of set out to try to change that. On our website, we have a lot of the research. I don't always keep it completely updated, but there's a research page with a lot of the research. We also have customer reviews. I think we were the first and maybe the only one who's doing that because we wanted people to hear from other customers what's going on. And then recently we just started doing a YouTube channel so we could, 5 and 8 minute videos so people can learn about it, bits and pieces, and kind of see what they think about it.
Oh, that's a great idea. What's the name of the channel?
It's 1000 Roads HQ, all spelled out, ONETHOUSAND. ROADS HQ.
Is that also the website?
The website is just 1000roads.com, all spelled out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll put that in the show notes for those who are forgetful and have brain fog. So are there sports organizations that are purchasing this equipment for their athletes or not yet? Or is that happening? And physicians of some type, or practitioners? That's probably a better word. It doesn't seem like an MD thing to me.
Well, we get some of everything. Actually a lot of the research on this was done by the US and the Russian Olympic teams. So there's a lot of big body of work on how it improves athletic performance. It's been used by a lot of athletes, a lot of endurance athletes love it as well. As far as practitioners, yeah, we have this goes in a bunch of like cryo clinics, chiropractors' offices. I just was speaking to a doctor yesterday. He's a U.S. doctor and he's down in Peru, and he's going to order a system for his Peru clinic, and he's going to order another one for up here in the USA. As a matter of fact, in the Alzheimer's community, There's a Dr. Bredesen who's got a really well-known protocol for reversing cognitive decline. They've done a blog article on Ewot and kind of tracking some of the biometrics that one of their doctors saw changes in. They're recommending Ewot as part of their protocol.
Well, that's a whole vast new field of figuring that out, because it's an increasing problem, I think, because
That's right.
people are supposedly living longer. Lifestyle and environment, was probably a big factor in Alzheimer's. I would imagine.
That's right.
That figuring out ways to supposedly there's nothing you can do. There's medicine, pharmaceuticals that supposedly help a little bit. I don't think, my experience of the people I know that have taken that, it doesn't really do very much at all.
No, as a matter of fact, they didn't even find it had like clinical significance, I thought, as I recall, and they allowed it because they just felt people needed something. And as I recall, at some of the newer Alzheimer's medications. But Dr. Bredesen is having a lot of success in the protocol that they're using at their clinics.
Where's that clinic? What is that? And how do you spell his name?
Bredesen, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, Bredson, I think.
Okay, Bredesen. Okay.
Yeah, and they have folks all over America. We have a lot of those customers come to us and are using Ewot as part of that, because at the end of the day, we talked about environment and the toxins in the environment. We talked about how Ewot helps you detoxify. We talked about how Alzheimer's is starting to be looked at as a metabolic issue. Some folks refer to it as like type 3 diabetes.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yep. So obviously this helps incredibly with metabolic health in the mitochondria. And Ewot's actually been proven to improve memory. If all of your neurons in your brain have the energy they need, then you can pull from, the various connections in your brain. But when you're feeling foggy and you're lower in oxygen, it's just like does not compute, right? You're like, I know it's there. What's my last name? What's my phone number? What's this person's name? You're like,
Now, I was also reading in your bio something about red light therapy. Is that connected to the oxygen thing? How does that connect? Because I have done an episode on red light therapy. I've done a couple of them, actually. I was just wondering how that connects.
So that was something I also used in my healing journey a little bit later. Actually, red light and Ewot work very similarly, and they work synergistically. Red light also helps with oxygen. So when we're doing Ewot, we've got this massive spike in oxygen supply, right? In that 15 minutes, you can bring in as much oxygen as you would in like a normal 12 or 14 hours in a day. So it's massive supply. Red light works on the flip side. It works by increasing your mitochondria's demand for oxygen. So, some of the most common benefits that people speak about in red light are the visual benefits, skin health, and visual appearance of the skin. Well, that's because when your skin cells are demanding more oxygen into their mitochondria, they can produce more collagen, fill in wrinkles, etc., and act more youthful. What we have folks do, it's kind of like a two-part protocol. You go do Ewot for 15 minutes and spike your supply and reopen up those capillaries so that oxygen can get everywhere in your body you need. When you get done with Ewot, you have all of this excess oxygen still circulating in your system. And now you go under a red light for, say, 15 minutes. And now all of your mitochondria and your cells are demanding all of this oxygen. And so Ewot's kind of from the inside out, right? We're breathing it in and it's circulating. And then red light's from the outside in. And so when you do them together, it accelerates the benefits. There's a lot of overlap in benefits. So not surprisingly, you're increasing oxygen demand. And it's really good for inflammation and pain, red light. It also helps with circulation at the ends of the runs of your circulatory system. So now we've got, two modalities that are working on improving your circulation to deliver oxygen. It also has been shown to help with memory. It penetrates pretty deep, red and near infrared light. It can penetrate pretty deep into the skin. And so it's not just your skin itself that's benefiting. It helps with soft tissue injuries, obviously skin healing and scars, and brain health, memory, and so many other things. It's a really cool modality. And when we have folks putting them together, they just see the benefits are accelerated.
Oh, it's amazing. I was learning about red light recently too. And my My wife just broke her foot about 3 months ago.
Mm.
Pretty serious fracture on it's called a Jones fracture. And the doctor said, um, well, the biggest problem with this healing this injury is that you don't get a lot of circulation in that area. So this is kind of a story that ends very well. So it's very painful, and it's really takes a long time. And so in combination with red light therapy, she bought it like a thing that went around the foot. So it was a sort of a concentrated area. It wasn't a big red light machine or anything, a tower
Yep.
or whatever they call them. She did that. She did acupuncture, and on the and calcium mixed with magnesium citrate, because that helps the calcium work. I'm helping people here. I know I am.
Yep.
Now, but by the way, the doctor didn't tell her to do any of this stuff because he didn't know about it.
Yep.
This was all researched on TikTok, believe it or not.
Dr. TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, people that have gone through these things.
Yep.
Bone broth for collagen.
Yep.
Bone healing. She went back. The doctor comes in with the X-ray. He goes, "I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen a foot heal like this in 12 weeks." He goes, "I thought I was going to pretty much have to do surgery on you, put a pin in there because that's what we do most of the time because these things don't heal. It was a serious fracture. What did you do?" So she told him all the things that she did. And he's like, he kept going. I've never seen an X-ray like this. He couldn't. So my point is, yes, red light did help. The bigger idea is take the initiative like you did to do research on specific things
Yep.
that you need to get done. And you may find, and you probably will find, at least maybe an improvement in what a doctor tells you or doesn't tell you. I remember we were sitting here going, why isn't this doctor giving us some kind of a pamphlet on the things you can do to help the healing? They don't do that. This is, he was trained in a medical school to do surgeries. That's it. There was nothing beyond that other than don't put any pressure on this break for, 6 weeks till you see me again. That was the only helpful thing. Just don't put any weight on it. And my personal doctor said the same thing when I talked to him about her injury. That was it.
Yeah.
They're going to lose business, I guess. But it was an astonishing. I mean, it blew the doctor away. He was like, "I've never," and he's been doing it. He's in his 40s, so he's been doing this for,
Wow.
20
Well, that
years.
also means he's a young doctor, relatively young doctor. He's obviously had a lot of experience, but he's also not like someone who was educated in, 30 years ago.
The thing about this is, we'll digress for a second. The medical schools, they teach what they taught 20 years ago, for the most part.
Yep.
And and those people learned with the people 20 years before that. So there's a whole sort of bureaucracy and, inertia toward not changing.
Yeah.
Because it's you got to rewrite stuff and you've got to bring in, people that know new stuff. And it's, they're not in the business of staying current. When you look at the people doing regenerative medicine, they didn't learn any of that in medical school. They learned it after.
Yes, you're right.
It's one of those things where there isn't enough time to teach it all, probably. So you have to do it post graduating, and who wants to do that? They want to start working and pay off their loans and have their jobs. And I understand how it is the way it is, which is why people have to take the initiative themselves to figure out what's actually available.
The story I hear in all of it too is, and I really truly believe, is that the body has a miraculous ability to heal itself when you support it and give it all the right tools. If you can give it the tools it needs, then it will perform minor miracles or major miracles sometimes, and just do things that don't seem like it can.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with the diligence my wife had in researching this. She goes, I wasn't going anywhere. I couldn't walk. So I figured, let's see what other people have done. Oh, and also hot and cold, alternate hot and cold soaking in
circulation.
Yeah, circulation. Exactly.
And, So I always tell folks, red light isn't a supplement. It's like, actually, it's just giving us back what we're missing.
Mm-hmm.
If you just think about like our ancestors 10, 20,000 years ago, we spent a lot more time outdoors absorbing the sunlight. And today we spend our time indoors. And the challenge is, we all, everyone talks about energy efficiency. We don't want to wait. We went away from incandescent bulbs that let off all this heat, and we went to all these LEDs. And one of the ways you make LED lights and fluorescent lights more efficient is you focus on the blue end of the spectrum, which is very illuminating, and you screen out all of the reds and the near infrareds and infrareds, which generate more heat and they don't illuminate so well. And so we actually live in a world where we're in a deficit of red light. And so by your wife putting red light on her feet, she's simply giving her body the red light that it's missing. And yeah, it's been proven to help speed up bone healing. And she was a perfect example of it.
Yeah, even when I was a kid, well, actually more so when I was a kid, if I went into a room with fluorescent lights, I felt sick very quickly. That's what's in every school classroom is, those overhead red light, fluorescent lights. And they also give off a sound.
Yep, the hut buzzing.
Yeah, I would be disoriented. And when you think about people were outside more, they also were breathing cleaner oxygen and they were moving more.
Yep.
With all our progress, we've gone backwards in terms of health.
Yeah, you're right. And then we fouled the environment. So when you're out there, it can be dangerous too.
Right. So. Well, a lot of people say too, like, supplements, you're just creating expensive pee. I've heard that before. But the thing, if you eat healthy food, but the soil isn't great. Yeah. So I mean, the food, the carrot from 200 years ago probably had a lot more in it that was of benefit than the one that you're getting at the grocery store.
Just because it's organic doesn't mean it's nutritious. It just means it has less pesticides.
Yeah.
Which is great. Yeah. Less pesticides, please. But yeah, to your point, it doesn't have all the nutrients that the soil used to have.
It is what it is for right now. That's right. We'll see what happens. I don't know if I'll be around for what happens.
The important part is you see more and more people taking ownership of their health and recognizing, you can't just go to the grocery store and eat what someone's telling you is healthy and go to the doctor and do what they say necessarily. You need at the end of the day, you need to own your own health and be an active participant in the decisions that affect your health.
I might as well ask this. What's the cost of your machine?
We have two of them. We have the one that produces 10 liters per minute, so it fills the reservoir quicker, and that sells for $2,300. And then we have a more economical model, which sells for $1,700.
Okay, so a person who needs this could do it. And, what's the price of health?
The thing is, it's kind of a one-time purchase for the most part. These devices will last many, many years. And so, we've had our systems in the field since 2018, and I have yet to have a customer come back and say, I've worn mine out. If you're willing to do something consistently over time, you're going to get more than your money's worth. Our goal is coming from a place of just knowing what it's like to be someone with chronic illness. And often it's hard to work and earn money. Some of these other companies that we're selling it at such outrageous prices. So mine was kind of like, hey, what if we brought the price way down? A lot more folks could afford it and do it in their home. There'd be a lot more folks who would benefit from it.
How often would somebody use this? I guess it sort of depends on their condition, but let's say somebody who's got a chronic disease as opposed to somebody who's more into the athletic thing or biohacking.
Yeah. In general, I tell folks the ideal is to get to 3 to 5 times a week for 15 minutes. Now, you may not start there. So like we got folks who are really sick and, it's like they just start slow and kind of build up over time.
Okay.
But that's kind of the goal and where we want to get folks to. And really pick a piece of exercise, an exercise regimen that you like the most when you're doing it. It could be anything. It could be elliptical, treadmill, exercise bike. Some folks start on like rebounders or vibration plates or something else. Because as I mentioned, like the benefits accumulate over time. And so our goal is to get folks to do this and do it consistently over time.
That's less often than I actually thought you were going to say. So fantastic, man. What a great talk. I really appreciate your time.
You too, Bob. I appreciate you letting me on.
Yeah. Let's plug the website and the YouTube channel one more time.
Sounds great. So the website is 1000roads.com, ONETHOUSAND ROADS.com. And then the YouTube channel is 1000 Roads HQ, all spelled out.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate this, and you have a fantastic day, and big kudos to you for your research and development. You're in R&D.
Indeed. Well, thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. It's been great speaking with you.
Much appreciation for you folks listening to The Exploding Human. The website is theexplodinghuman.com. There's also a YouTube channel where you can listen. That is The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman. Once again, I want to thank Brad Pitzele for being on the show. You can find out more at the website, 1000roads.com, and also at his YouTube channel, which is 1000 Roads HQ. Have a fantastic day. Thank you.